In this wacky, crazy sport that we never know what's going to happen, you can't expect anything, including especially in the Red River Shootout. But naturally, as many expected, and I was completely wrong on, Texas dominated. They dominated even without a stellar offensive performance down in Dallas. 34-3 final score. And we got a lot to talk about. Welcome on into the SEC Unfiltered postgame show. He's Dave Shumate. I'm Cole Thompson. Breaking down everything that we saw down in Dallas as the Longhorns, the #1 team in the country, gets to hold that title for another week after dismantling the Sooners in front of what has to be one of the greatest atmospheres in college football. Real quickly, make sure that you smash the subscribe button down below because we're talking college football every single day. Live reactions, recaps, Sunday Fun Day, Dave Talks Ball, Monday Fun Day Power Hour. So make sure that you hit the subscribe and the ring notification. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at SEC Unfiltered. Follow Dave on Twitter at Mock10 Sports, me on Twitter at Mr. Cole Thompson, and check out all of our great work found at SECUnfiltered.com. This episode is brought to you by our friends over at Roback. Go ahead and go to Roback.com. Use the promo code SECU for 20% off your first purchase. Joggers, polos, hoodies, shorts. Fall foliage is around the corner. You're going to want to be dressed to nine. Do so on game days with the Roback.com promo code SECU. Dave, you know, this is just a game where anything is possible, including Texas dismantling the Sooners, which we're going to get into. But I would like to say real quickly, you're welcome, Texas fans. You are giantly welcome for my contributions. And I know everyone's going to go and say, Cole, you picked Oklahoma to win. I did. But you have to remember, if I would have picked Texas, it would have been a clean sweep. And that would have led to probably one of the biggest upsets in college football this year. So I took a bullet for the team, Dave. I took a bullet.
Against his record. He put his L column on the line.
Take a hit. That way, Texas could walk away victorious. That is 100% how we go ahead and watch this game. Texas showed you everything that they needed to offensively, to where there are question marks, but not as many concerns. Defensively, they balled out. And ultimately, now Texas is sitting firmly up top of the SEC rankings, right alongside Texas A&M, heading into a weekend to where they get to play host to Georgia and also College Game Day.
Yeah, no, I mean, across the board, I guess if you were just a random college football fan, Cole, outside of the rivalry, you were probably a little bored with it. Obviously, it's the first SEC Red River game for us. But yeah, the stories that give Texas their flowers, you're right. I like the way they came out outside of the first quarter, controlled the game. What'd they have? How many yards they have in the first quarter? And they had like 200 in the second. It was
something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
I mean, their first down came on the opening drive of the second quarter.
But we talked about that going into it. It wouldn't have shocked you if Quinn had to knock some rust off a little bit. The guy hadn't played in a live action, like game-wise, in 4 weeks. So that made sense. I was just more so, and we talked about it last Sunday Fun Day in the preview of this. Look, no, I didn't expect Oklahoma to win this game. I mean, I thought it would be a one-score game. I thought it'd be close. Was taking a little dose of Cole Sooner magic. But the thing I'm disappointed in, and if I was an Oklahoma fan, is you had 2 weeks to prepare for what you showed offensively.
Yeah.
That looked almost as bad. And again, Texas is the best defense you've seen, so give Texas credit too. The good defense is going to make you look worse as well. But it was look like you did nothing for the past 2 weeks. It's like, man, like you didn't get with him to play off his strengths. And again, I know he's a true freshman going against the best defense. PK and what they do on defense at Texas really good this year so far from what we've seen. But didn't mix up anything. And when you did kind of get something going, he just turned the football over. It's just, you couldn't get anything going offensively. In the game plan, I think, was bad. And I don't understand why they never made a move to Jackson Arnold at that point. I hate being that guy to be like, hey, make a change. Well, sometimes it's not as simple as that. Like that just looked bad enough where it was like, dude, I don't really care where Jackson Arnold is in the game plan this week. Like, it can't get worse. So I don't know why you didn't make the move. I think the big story out of this, big win for Texas. They got a bigger game next week against Georgia.
Let's go ahead and always start off with the winners. It was, without question, one of the worst starts that Quinn Ewers could have as he walked out of the tunnel. Get an interception on the opening drive. Immediately, they marched down the field. Thank God they didn't get a field goal out of it, or the final score would have been 34-6. But it was nowhere near what you expected from a guy that we were talking about just several weeks ago after marching on into Ann Arbor to defeat the Michigan Wolverines, the national champion Wolverines, as a Heisman contender. Anything from it. But we brought this up before. They slowed down. the tempo kind of picked a little bit back up. We saw a little bit more of Quinn knocking off of the rust. And then we got vintage version. Quick throws, decisive reads, the ability to extend plays outside the pocket, make the proper calls, great open field visual residuals from wide receivers, from running back play, from even tight ends like Gunnar Helm. Once they found their way into the end zone, it was very clear that the offense had a game plan, what was going to work, how they were able to capitalize. And then also just the intensity of this game. I have preached for a very long time, and there are many people who are watching this video right now or will watch it later on in the replay that understand this is a matchup where everyone tries to play their best version. And it's because of bragging rights. It's because of what the energy and the aura is of this game. It's because of what happens when these two meet on that neutral site field, which is far from neutral because it's a 30-minute home game, a 30-minute away game. Everyone knows that this is one of those games that just has second to none mentality. And so you wake up and you play a certain brand. On one side, you saw everything that you want to in terms of we're here to deliver, we're here to strike, we're here to show everyone that we mean business in the SEC. And it started with the Silas Bolden touchdown, which, by the way, was a Trey Wisner fumble that bounced in the back of the end zone that probably should have been a touchback. And at that point, momentum swung immediately because number 11 decided to be the guy who was the aggressor and put himself in the end zone for an easy 6 points.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I took away from this game was really just the defense has been so good this year. And again, I think you can make a case what great offense have they played. The best offense they'll see is next week that they've seen so far on their schedule, which I think everybody can attest. But still, their opponents in today's modern college football are only I think I just looked it up, they're averaging 6.6 points per game. I mean, again, I don't really care who that is against. That's just kind of impressive. To be honest, I know Michigan's not great offensively. You can make the case maybe ULM's the best offense they faced this year. I know State's the only team that put up double-digit points, but I don't know. I think two things can be true at once. They haven't really been challenged defensively, Texas's defense. No. But also they've dominated what they have faced. So it's not like, who they really faced. I mean, even ULM putting up points on them. It's like, no, 6.6 points per game. That's impressive against anybody in today's college football. And they just suffocate people. You're really not getting a lot going right now. This Georgia offense next week has a lot of holes. I mean, Texas can definitely stand their ground there too. I mean, give Alfred Collins, Vernon Broughton, those guys. They're not T'Vondre Sweat. They're not Byron Murphy, but they're pretty good too.
The way that Texas's defense was able to start this game and force a lot of consistent plays to where it was third and long, to where it didn't feel manageable, punt, field goal, punt, fumble, end of half. They did their job. They did everything that they were allowed to show that this is a team that means business in the conference. This is a team that will be able to go gung-ho against high-profile offenses, up-tempo passing attacks, and be able to force young quarterbacks into making mistakes. And that's where I'm really taken away from this. Quinn Ewers had an overall underwhelming first half. He never really gained momentum in the second half, but the game was so far out of reach because of the consistency on the ground, the ability to capitalize, the ability to have that kind of second win mentality in them that you didn't need Quinn to have a great game. You just needed some stability. When I look at where he played, it's good enough to get by, but that defense, Dave, that defense is going to be a challenge for anybody moving forward. And I'm not talking about just in the SEC. I'm talking about when they reach the college football playoff. And I think that you and I both can agree at this point, the way Texas has looked, as long as they don't find a way to fumble the bag or pull a Texas of old, not only will they be in the playoff, they will be a high seed in the playoff and get that home matchup. That defense is going to be challenging for anybody to go up against. Ole Miss, Tennessee, Oregon, Ohio State, Clemson, they're going to give people massive troubles. It was a complete performance, and they took advantage of a young quarterback. Basically, if you remember the movie Dodgeball, there's a scene and there's a line by Cotton where he's saying like, they're taking advantage of the young freshman or the Justin Long character, saying that it's basically like going up against 4 rabid mongooses. That's how Texas's defense played today. They saw Michael Hawkins had a weakness. They were unafraid. They immediately delivered, and they put him behind the sticks and having to throw it out of bounds because there was no wide receiver open, let alone there was no wide receiver available for the Sooners today.
No, I love the dodgeball reference there, Bear. I think good, fantastic Vince Vaughn movie. Yeah, I mean, across the board, Texas defense playing really well. I would say right now, again, you always got to keep Georgia in there from a little bit, but I would distance them. Georgia, Texas, I feel like from a true national, and we're a long way away, but from what we've seen so far, would be the only team I would put that could legitimately go win the whole thing from the SEC right now. I would say everybody else has kind of got holes. And again, we got a long way to go, but to your point, to piggyback off you got to be impressed with the Horns. I think the defense really will be tested next week, but again, Georgia has holes too, so I think Texas can exploit those up. So I'm excited for that matchup. They just keep holding down the fort. I'm glad someone corrected me in there. I said 6.6. Our boy H Post said 6.3. So yeah. They're just playing really good defense. I don't care if it's Westlake High School right now.
And you know what the crazy part is the fact that you saw an opportunity to score. You saw an opportunity just to go ahead and put them on the board and maybe feel like that Oklahoma showed up to the party. It was a bad performance, but you walk away with at least 10 points. It could be worse. And Texas's defense did everything possible to make sure, yeah, we'll let you march down the field. We'll let you eat up all this time. But when you get inside that red zone, we're going to come for you. We're going to come for your ass, and we're going to make you scream uncle. And they did. And ultimately,
you saw they had no respect for that offense.
No respect whatsoever.
In the second half, they're going for it on 4th and 2. Like when it's like, you could have easily made a field goal. Made it through. Like, well, dude, I don't think they're going to move the football even if we don't get it.
No respect whatsoever. I think the other thing that's really important here is that Texas's defense was able to capitalize on critical mistakes, especially against a young quarterback that doesn't know how to play in this type of atmosphere, which leads us to now talking a little bit more about Oklahoma. For Oklahoma, the part that's really troubling is you kind of had a good understanding of who was going to be available and who wasn't. You kind of had a good understanding who was going to be at the helm to make plays and who was going to be watching from the sidelines. And you built a game plan for Michael Hawkins Jr. in this environment, which, by the way, he grew up in. He understands what is Red River. He understands what is this matchup with the Crimson and Cream versus the Burnt Orange. His dad played there. He has a great relationship with those in Norman. But still, it's a young player making his first career start in this matchup. And you built a game plan to where he had to throw the football and you would have put pressure on him to deliver. That is a coaching egregious error by Seth Luttrell and by Brent Venables. Because the last thing that you can afford to do is force your young quarterback that right now did not win the starting job out of training camp, did not win the starting job after a couple of really bad plays by Jackson Arnold, and really only came in to change up the offensive identity after you were down and out of the count against Tennessee. That really became your bread and butter, and you put all of this pressure on him to be your answer when you have to trust the ground game, when you have to trust the offensive line pulling and opening up avenues to where you get some momentum with the rushing attack. But to say when there's no wide receivers, to say when literally your best option in the passing game is Bauer Sharp, your tight end, who transferred on in from FCS Southeastern Louisiana, to literally have
former quarterback
who had nothing to game plan with on the outside besides J.J. Hester making a couple of big-time plays against Auburn, which, by the way, Auburn's secondary is hit and miss every single week and basically every single drive. That was malpractice by Seth Luttrell, and it was a shame to have to watch as Michael Hawkins never was able to find momentum. And basically, you watched this again. Texas's defense looked at them and said, "We don't respect you at all. Screw yourself."
I mean, dude, if I'm an Oklahoma fan, you just gave Brent Venables the contract. This is a moment in the Brent Venables tenure. Again, Joe Castiglione's not getting rid of him this year. Obviously not. But if I'm a fan of the Sooners, I want to see if Brent Venables has the you-know-whats to go get rid of his buddy. Again, I don't like calling for anybody's job. Again, it affects – you're not really worried about the coaches losing their jobs. They get a big paycheck to leave. You're more worried about the families who meet friends, their kids leave. That's more what you're worried about. But, dude, this is bad. Like, it's like this was my last chance. I was giving you the benefit of the doubt. You had, 5 of your top receivers injured. Second game in a row you've had the same 5 starting offensive line or the offensive line. Quarterbacks hurt, a lot of excuses. But you know when you're a good coach is when you see adjustments. I saw no adjustments from
none whatsoever at all.
Yeah, and this doesn't fit what Oklahoma needs to be offensively. The big RPO heavy game, a big decision, put the decision in the at least right now in a true freshman's hands. I think Brent Venables is going to have a big decision on his hand at the end of the year because I don't see it getting real bad. I don't see it getting much better. Can he make the decision to move on from his buddy and go hire another offensive coordinator? Because I think that's going to ultimately save his job in Oklahoma, not in Norman, not this year, But down the line,
he's not going to get fired. People need to understand with the way the buyouts work, especially for coaches that recently get paid, it would be egregious to let them go.
I don't even think Oklahoma fans want Brent Venables fired.
Because of what are you going to replace him with? That's my question. Who comes in and is a much better fit with recruiting, with defensive metrics? Because again, the defense all the way up until the fourth quarter, I don't really think that you can blame them giving up 34 points. They were gassed at that point.
No, I think the defense, for the most part, for about 3/4 of the game before, like you just said, got gassed and winded, played pretty well. And again, I think if you ask people in the comments, like, nobody wants Brent Venables gone. I think it's just kind of like, dude, this is.
I guarantee you there are people that want Brent Venables gone, but they don't know what they're talking about.
No, yeah. I mean, I think that's not happening. It's pretty naive to think like, it's like, dude, I still believe in Brent Venables, but this is why you get paid the big bucks here, Brent. Now you got to go. Maybe let go of a buddy for the betterment of the program. I mean, that was a bad performance today.
Dave, why did you stick so much to your guns at halftime with Michael Hawkins, feeling the pressure and not being willing to make any switches? And again, if you're not going to make halftime adjustments for the quarterback that you have, make halftime adjustments where you switch out the quarterback and just change the tempo or the pace. Because Jackson Arnold, I get it. He did not look good in any game outside the Temple performance. He did not look good against Houston. He did not look good against Tulane. He was awful with the 3 turnovers against Tennessee. But what really started to work a little bit was the defense was going to give you a couple of key stops. And you could have at least turned to Arnold, see what would have happened. And if that could have been something, at the end of the day, if he throws a pick six or if he throws an interception and Johnny Nance's defense corrals all over him, you just go back to Hawkins and you say, okay, cool. We know that you're our best option. But the fact that you had a game plan only built around one quarterback who was struggling and had no life, it kind of shot yourself in the foot. Like it truly did. And by the way, but make no mistake, Texas not only earned this win, Texas looked like the most dominant team that we have seen in a hot minute in this matchup for a while. And this could be the start of a brand new future of the Red River Shootout down in the SEC. It very well can. But
no, I think it could too. I'm fired about I thought Venables them defensively had a good plan. It's like you said, if you're not putting up points offensively, your defense is ultimately just going to kind of.
But again, when you have this type of performance and you don't make any necessary offensive adjustments, you're kind of giving the game to Texas. Whether or not Texas earned the win, whether or not Texas looked like the more dominant team, you kind of handed the game to them because you said, hey, this is what we're not going to do. We're not going to make any changes. Go ahead and continue to do what you're doing. You'll walk away with a double-digit victory.
Yeah, the Oklahoma offense performance is indefensible. I'm actually pretty fired up tomorrow to go. I usually rewatch a lot of these games on Sunday afternoon, Sunday night. I'm actually fired up to just kind of go watch the Oklahoma just offense and the Texas defensive tape.
Dave, let's go ahead and talk about the future for Texas right now because they're sitting at 2-0 in conference play. They're coming off of a bye. They feel really healthy. They're getting back their quarterback, who, by the way, you feel really good about both quarterback options. Quinn did not have his best day. If Quinn gets hurt, congratulations. You go right back to Arch Manning. You feel like that he is the answer. You feel like he is the solution. Wide receivers made a ton of plays. Silas Bolden, with the intensity, I think has earned a little bit more playing time. And you're watching right now as, yes, Georgia has a win, and Georgia's probably going to walk away with a dub this week. But it was an overall underwhelming performance against Mississippi State, and still is going on. You win that game. Not only are you guaranteed, I think, at that point to make the college football playoff with two losses, because if 2 losses come, it would have to be in sporadically awful fashion, which I don't think is possible. But that's a team that feels like we have solidified ourselves as guaranteed, no-nonsense national championship contenders. You feel like today you're a college football playoff threat. You win in the fashion that you did today against Georgia in your home turf. Absolutely, you are without a doubt, no questions asked.
I think if they just win next week, they're in the playoffs.
No. If they win, they're in the playoff. Because I don't see 3 losses.
No, I mean, I don't see. I mean, obviously Vanderbilt's a tougher game than they thought it would be, but I still don't think Vanderbilt's going to straight up win that game. Florida, at Arkansas, Kentucky at home, and at A&M. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, you get to lose 3 out of your last 5. I mean, that'd be an epic meltdown.
I see 1 loss, and even then, I think the 1 loss.
Yeah.
And even then, it's a potential loss.
Yeah.
And it would come on the road to Arkansas at this point. Or it would come on the road to Vanderbilt because we're going to find out, was Vanderbilt actually a really improved team, or is Alabama's defense just that awful this year? We're going to find out tonight.
I hadn't looked at the national schedule, but I bet College Game Day's in Nashville. If Vandy won tonight, they play Ball State next week. Let's just give them that win. And then Texas goes there in 2 weeks. I mean, it would not shock me if College Game Day was in Nashville.
Wouldn't shock me at all, but what I'm saying is more so I see
No, I know. I was just throwing that out. That would
I see one loss right now. It's either to Vanderbilt, depending on what Vanderbilt looks like, and even then, it's very far-fetched, or it's Arkansas because of we know what this rivalry is. We know what this matchup is all the time.
I have a hard time thinking Vandy could be straight up Texas.
And
I just think Texas. I think Bama losing to Vanderbilt, I think will help Texas roll into that more focus. I think Sark and them will be like, let's just get up big, and then they'll have to play outside their game to start passing. I see what you're talking about that, but God, dude, I mean, that's the greatest season in Vanderbilt football season. Even if they only won 7 games and didn't hit the history mark, they beat Alabama and Texas the same.
They beat 2 number 1 teams the same year. I mean, like they've never beaten a top 5 team, and they win 2 games this year. Of course, it would be freaking history. It'd be awesome. But like the way that I view this team, they're going to lose maybe 1 game at most, and even still, it may come in the SEC championship. Because Texas's defense, we are not giving enough credit to. I think so many people are kind of underselling what is the hire of Johnny Nansen, the players that they brought in via the portal, the players that they brought in as a recruit on recruiting. Trey Moore had a decent day. You look at the defensive front with Leyva, and when you look at Siava and you look at Bill Norton, they've had a good day. The secondary has been Andrew Makuba has been phenomenal this year on the back end as a big replacement for Jerry.
There's the Gilbo kid. He made a couple plays today.
He's I think he's a sophomore this year. I think he was part of last year's last year's recruiting class, but still, again, made a couple of highlight plays. The recruiting has been really well. They're playing up to a certain brand of football that we know about Texas, and it's given their offense a chance to come back when they come out of the gate slow. And that's what you need in these type of games in the SEC. The way that Steve Sarkisian has meticulously built this roster over the last several years is literally made to be sustainable in the SEC, where if your offense has a rocky performance, your defense will step up. If your defense is coming out of the gate struggling, your offense can capitalize and put up points. And the fact that he has that experience of knowing what works and what doesn't in the conference is wonders moving forward for the Longhorns. And they're going to be not only in every game, Dave, they're going to control every game, because if they just did that against Oklahoma in what I believe is a game that you can never predict, and you probably don't know what you're going to get after what you see against Georgia this week. Because is Georgia still going to be this fool's gold offense? The part that we have not really talked a lot about, Alabama gave up 4 sacks to South Carolina's defensive line in the first half. They didn't give up a single sack to Georgia in the first half. They gave up 1 sack the entire day. So is Georgia's defense nowhere near the same level as it once was? And is that benefit a team like Texas?
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, I think from that game perspective, it'll be a really interesting piece. Like you said, what offense plays best in that first half may have that head start in that game. That may be the ultimate outcome that we're not talking about. We'll talk about the way the games end and stuff, because it's just kind of the first half's out of sight, out of mind. But I think whoever starts better on first half in that game to watch, because they both struggled in the first half before, especially Georgia. I mean, they were even struggling in the first half offensively today against Mississippi State until like on the last 2 or 3 minutes they kind of turned it on. But even State scoring back and forth with them. But Cole, what do you think about Oklahoma? What's the future?
It's rocky because of their defense. Again, take out the fourth quarter, where at that point you are just gassed. You're out of breath. You've lost momentum. It's a 24-3 game. You give up 24 points to this Texas offense, I'm not going to lie, I feel still really good. I feel really, really confident. The way that Danny Stutzman played, the way that Robert Spears-Jennings played, the way that Peyton Bowen played, the way their pass rush looked at times, the fact that they were able for the first quarter to just make Texas look anemic offensively, that gives me hope. But I don't know what to make of the offense. And honestly, I don't know where it's going to get better. Because, you're going to bring back in Deion Burks at some point. You're going to add in Nick Anderson at some point. But if the offensive line still has so many faults to where Michael Hawkins Jr. is running for his life, that's going to lead to errant passes. That's going to lead to 3 and outs. That's going to lead to punts. You're going to put pressure on your defense to have to deliver. I don't know. And their schedule, albeit not the most challenging, still not easy. Game against South Carolina next week. Game against Ole Miss in 2 weeks. Mizzou, Alabama.
I got it right here, Cole. At
LSU.
South Carolina, at Ole Miss, Maine, at Mizzou, Bama at home, and at I mean, the only win you can give them right now is Maine.
I think you can probably give them one more win to make sure they go.
No, I'm just saying on paper that is the only game that you're like, oh yeah, Oklahoma will win that.
But besides that, again, we're talking about a 6-win team, and I don't think that 6 wins is anywhere on the radar of Oklahoma. I don't. I think they're probably more 7-5, 8-4. But I can't believe it until I see this offense come to life. And there is no life on this offense right now. None whatsoever. And it's not simply just adding back in wide receivers. It's the fact that running lanes aren't being open. It's the fact that the play calling has been timid at best. It's the fact that you don't feel confident in your quarterback to take those deep shots down the field. It's that you're capitalizing on one major play per quarter to really be the backbone of your team. I'm sorry. That's what it is. And that's the concern right now that I have for Oklahoma. That's the concern I have right now for the series.
Their defense, they're almost like not a little bit. They're a worse version of like South Carolina from an offensive standpoint. It's funny.
They're a way worse version than South Carolina.
They both play each other next week. It's kind of like, yeah, I know the defense is going to be there every week. They're going to give them a shot every week. But how can the offense come around? You're right. I think South Carolina is ahead of the curve from that perspective, but it's similar how they play with each other where it's like, yeah, the defense is by far the biggest strength of this team. They happen to play each other next week. I mean, dude, we're not previewing it, but if you made me bet right now at 7:38 p.m. Eastern when we're doing this reaction, I'd probably take South Carolina.
I picked South Carolina to get that upset.
Yeah.
At the start of the preseason, I said that Oklahoma was going to beat Texas, and they were going to be down and out of the count, losing all that momentum coming back home. They would lose South Carolina. I stand on that. The way that South Carolina looked today, offensively, with the ability to at least get some big-time plays, and the fact that I don't know what to expect from Oklahoma's offense, it's scary to pick Oklahoma moving forward. It's in fact almost
game outside of Maine. You're right.
It's malpractice to pick Oklahoma until we see that injury report of
take this guy's picks license away from him if he's picking Oklahoma.
Look, at the end of the day, we all kind of figured the better team was going to come out on top. The better team did. This looks like a national championship team. They're versatile. They can win at all 3 levels of the game. Bird Auburn, you got to start making some more 40-yard field goals.
Yeah, sorry,
I'm sorry, you got to start doing that if you want to actually walk away with the dub. But besides that, it's very challenging to say there is a fault in Texas right now. There's a ton to clean up, but it's all correctable. Where if you're a Longhorn fan going out to the state fair, going out to enjoying your Saturday night in Dallas, you know that you are going to be a team that has all the potential to hoist up a national title for the first time since 2005.
No, I agree. Right. Bird Auburn's the only thing that hadn't really been that consistent from what you think, but you know he has it in him at some point.
By the way, I was right about Silas Bolden, wide receiver number 1. Just did not think it was going to come on him.
That's all the thing Texas fans need to be. Isaiah Bond.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting to follow. Here's the deal. David's literally just pick your poison. It's how do you want to die? Do you want to die by Ryan Wingo? Do you want to die by Silas Bolden? Do you want to die by Matthew Golden throwing passes? Do you want to die by Gunnar Helm looking freaking awesome? Like that is the version of what we see right now for Texas. But Oklahoma, you got a lot to fix. Texas, you got a lot to like. And at the end of the day, welcome to the Red River Showdown in the SEC, where this becomes a matchup that we will talk about year in and you're out. Make sure that you like, rate, review, subscribe, hit the follow button down below. That way you're always catching up with everything that we're doing here on the channel. Live Sunday Fun Day, instant reactions from major games. We got Dave's Talk Ball twice a week, the Monday phone, the phone power hour, everything that you want to see and much, much more. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure that also you're following us on the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at SEC Unfiltered. If you want to clown me on Twitter for picking Oklahoma, it's at Mr. Cole Thompson. But when you do, please make sure that you hit this follow button. Make sure that you're following Dave at Mach 10 Sports, one of the greatest in the industries. And make sure that also you're checking out all of our great work found at SECUnfiltered.com. Texas advances. Oklahoma's got problems. And the Red River Shootout is now officially part of the SEC. For Dave Shumate, I'm Cole Thompson. Peace.